about news, rumors, and game recaps. So whether you're a diehard fan or just getting started with the team, this is the podcast for you. Here's your host, Craig Borden, with co-hosts Jason Lyons and me, Ken Alfred. You're listening to the Jay Bird Watching Podcast.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Jay Bird Watching. And as always, Jason Lyons is here with me this evening, or at least as of always the last few weeks.
Yeah, it's just you and me. We're like odd roommates now. We've made the other roommates force them out by eating bad cheese and not doing our dishes.
Drinking German beer and all this weird shit. So it must have been all the toys, you know. They thought I was doing not a podcast for Toronto Blue Jays baseball, something like that. I have no idea. But anyway, Blue Jays fans, we are here to have another evening of talking about your Toronto Blue Jays on what is the barroom chat for Toronto Blue Jays fans. That is Jay Bird Watching, the official podcast of jaysjournal.com, part of Fansided. So, Jason, we have had all sorts of ups, downs, and continue all over the place over the last week. The Blue Jays did do something really fun this last week, though, as the Tampa Bay Rays came into Toronto 13-0, and we took the series.
Yeah,
what are your thoughts?
I actually, after I watched all of the games and going into the final game of the series, I legitimately thought they could have swept it. I didn't know if they had enough gas in the tank to keep it going, but I really feel like that served notice to the entirety of the American League East, as well as the entire, American League, that if you put something in front of the Jays, they're going to get angry at it and smash it with bats. And it's, for me, it's huge. It was amazing to watch them small ball it up. I mean, for going into this season and thinking to yourself, we've got a couple of mashers and we've got some guys that are really going to put the ball into the season. It's been base hits and doubles that have been winning the games for them. It's been smart base running. I mean, Brandon Belt probably had one of the better series he's had in, I'd say, the last 2 years. What did he have? 3-4 doubles, and he just seemed to be, flight of foot and moving around the base as well. He looked good. Springer played well. Kiermaier played well against his former team. I like that there was a lot of joking in the first game, and then when they lost it, the joking got a little bit less. And then when they lost the second one, there's almost no joking except for him having a blast. I think we referenced this in the title of the cast for this week. I mean, the starting pitching has just been such an absolute hurricane. But what are your thoughts on? I mean, I think that the offense was strong. The pitching came to when it needed to. I mean, there's a couple of shakes, rattles, and rolls. It could be the Elvis, but otherwise, I mean, you can't not be happy with that.
Yeah, to your point, there was plenty of ups and downs and everything, and I think the word roller coaster strikes perfectly to the word about what's going on, because we're getting good starts from guys we were not expecting to be doing what we're doing. I'll just point you at Yusei Kikuchi and just say consistent so far, knock on desk. So the fact that we are this far into the season and we're seeing what we are from him, and then you get the flip of that, our actual ace with Alek Manoah, who has been, I can't even say inconsistent because it's sporadic, I think, at this point, Jason, but it's been all over the place. It's amazing how he'll be cruising for a couple of guys, and then just the mechanics fold up, something happens that all of a sudden you have 7 runs on the board. It's just, you're not expecting that kind of thing. But to that point, they did what they needed to do against the Rays, and I can't fault them for anything about that series, regardless of how it might have ended. To your point, they did have a chance to actually make that a sweep, and then some things got out of hand. So good series, and they took it to a division rival in that perfect way to keep this early part of the season momentum going.
Absolutely. And I mean, your point on Kikuchi is very accurate. Like, I mean, he seems to just have his nose to the grindstone. He wants to throw strikes. He wants to get guys out. He seems excited about it. Manoah, on the other hand, and I sort of referenced this to you before we came on. I don't know if you remember Hoist Gracie. Hoist Gracie used to fight in the UFC, and he was half the weight of anybody else that he was fighting against, but he always seemed to win. He could beat these guys like Tank Abbott, these big monsters that would, if they got a hold of you, they'd beat you to death. But he was like it was death by 1,000 cuts. And Manoah seems to be able to get himself into trouble. And then you look at it 4 or 5 innings later, and you're like, wait a second, the score's tied. And you're like, how did it? Yeah. Wait. And so he's keeping them in games. He's making it so that they have the availability to come back in a game. And even if they don't win that game, I feel like it's a positive experience for the most part, because Manoah's not giving up. He's not throwing 2 innings of garbage and then being like, well, that's it, I'm going to go sit on the bench. He gets back out there, and it's like Gosman the other night in the loss to the Astros. Like, I mean, he looked awful. He was
lights out from the 2 inning off. And then
it was like a different guy after the set. And then, of course, if you're watching the broadcast, as soon as they start giving him big praise, he served up just a hamburger to center field. Like, it's funny
to a rookie, nonetheless. That Jerks kid looks like he's legit, by the way, for Houston Astros fans. So, and if you were a betting man coming into this season, and you were going to tell me that Yusei Kikuchi had a better ERA after 15 innings pitched in the Major League Baseball than Alek Manoah, you would have probably laughed at me off the freaking podcast here, I think. It wouldn't even be a question.
People probably don't know this, but us, the Jaybird watching, the fan side of the Jays general crew, we're all in a fantasy baseball pool, which I suck at because I'm
horrible too.
I don't know all the ins and outs and all the rest of it. Anyways, I was offered a trade a couple of days ago for Alek Manoah and Cody Bellinger. And I'm assuming, based on the fact that Bellinger's hitting like 7,000 and Manoah's
doing a buy high or sell high candidate.
The other guys and gals that were in this pool don't think I know anything about baseball, but no trade.
But to that point, in the midst of that whole thing, that was trying to get you into your Blue Jays fun with that.
Yeah, I know. I find this part of the season right now to be super interesting because, after the Astros, who do the Jays play? It's on to the Yankees. Oh yeah, and they're not too bad. And the Yankees are actually going to throw 3 pretty darn good pitchers the way of the Jays. And then you've got the White Sox, then you've got Seattle, and then you can take a bit of a break. You've got maybe 6 or 8 in a row where you may be able to at least have a bit of a break. But I mean, this is a meat grinder from here on, like from that Tampa series on.
Because even the White Sox are after the Yankees, and that's no slouch. They're not
at all.
And they're very pesky at this point this year so far.
Yeah. So I mean, like I said, I love it when a team fights. I love it when they fight themselves out of a hole. It's one of my favorite things about the sport of baseball is you can put up 7, and as long as you're in the game, as long as you get yourself 1, or as long as you feel like you've gained back some momentum, like you strike out the best player on their team, or you make a really nice double play, that game can turn around in an inning, or it can turn around in 4. And that's the beautiful thing. Like I went to the Vancouver Canadians game, the nooner at the Nat on last Friday. Nice. And it was 4-0 for the Dust Devils going into the 8th inning, 5-4. I mean, and all they did was just hit the ball around the yard, and I managed to get a couple of pork rockets inside me and a couple of beers, and 5-4 win. It was a beautiful, beautiful day. But it's the beautiful thing about baseball is that you can, if you've got if you can feel your pulse still, then you've got a chance to get back into a game, and it's nice to see the Jays battling so hard to win these points that can be just essential. In August, September, October, they can be so huge. 2 wins over Tampa plus that 1 over Houston. That could be the 3-point difference that gets you into not in the wild card, it gets you into a playoff spot, or whatever the case may be. But they're important points, every single one of them.
Yes. So, and to that point, it's amazing as Blue Jays fans this year, period, because even that game on Sunday, I thought there was something coming. It was that 1 home run early in the game that had me keeping enough interest, even though the Rays had ran away for 7 runs at that point. And to your point, I just had this feeling something was going to happen and never ended up coming to fruition. But the rest of this season has been that for the Blue Jays for these games where they've gotten out of hand. And I point you to the exact example of the 12-11 win over the Anaheim Angels just 2 weekends ago.
Yeah.
Or 1 weekend ago.
And I mean, I don't know if you've noticed this or not, Craig, but we the Jays have the hottest 7, 8, 9 hitters in the league right now. I mean, there's nobody that's even close. They put up one of the stats, I think it was 2 games ago, and it's like, I mean, they're here, and the next closest team is like it's a massive gap. And again, like if you can keep that 7, 8, 9, Kiermaier's down there, and he's like, leave me down here. I'm just bashing. They're giving me garbage pitching.
He's getting cookies.
Yeah,
getting cookies.
It's good to see. I feel like the game against the Astros today is a fairly big one. It's a late one. You'll have to stay up till like 4 a.m. if you want to watch the end of it, basically. But it's a big one. I think it's winnable. And then they got to go at the Yankees' throat. I mean, you got to take at least 2 from the Yankees and at least 2 from the White Sox to prove to the whole of Major League Baseball that these guys aren't kidding. They're going for a championship this year.
Yeah, and it's not too late. It's an 8 o'clock start. So it'll be those 8 o'clock starts over the last few weeks or a few games so far have actually been over West Coast or East Coast time here by like 11 o'clock.
So fast.
It's I still don't know if I'm a fan of it. I really don't, as far as the pitch clock and everything goes, because I like the pace of the game. But if I go to a ball game, I would like to flush away 3 hours of my getting back to my real life, not just under it. So I don't know what to think at this point as far as that piece of it goes. But hey, maybe it's because the 7th thing will come too quick and I won't be able to go get another beer.
Yeah, I do find that interesting. There's a lot of, I guess they moved that to the 8th inning. Was that for all stadiums or just some? Because I know there was some pitchers and a few other guys in the majors that said, hey, look, we need fans to have 2 innings to sober up. So when I leave the ballpark or my family does, or whenever anybody's family, I mean, some people do, necessarily, when they go to a game, they do sort of take it over. I mean, we've all seen it. We've all been at games where you've seen somebody just, gassed, and you're wondering how not only they got so gassed, but what would be the
how are you getting home?
Well, what are you going to remember from the game, which is 0? But I think that the control on the alcohol for those innings is essential. Again, it's such a nice, relaxing thing to be able to go and watch such a beautiful game and enjoy a beverage and all the rest of it. And I'm just glad that the MLB gets it and they're listening to not only the fans, but the players are savvy enough to say, hey, fans, let's not shove 8 more beers in our face in the 8th inning. Let's try and keep it to
I'll just do that all before the game and first inning. It'll be all right. You go to, is it Wrigley that has the actual like hollowed out baseball bats that are a big plastic that it's like a yard. There's
a whole bunch of them have it now. A whole bunch of them have it now. I mean, and that'd be really good when it gets down to the bottom. We've all had a warm draft down at the bottom. That's delicious. It's flavor. You've had your hands on it for an hour warming it.
Yeah, it's not even like going to Europe and getting like cellar beer because they don't put refrigerators. It's just all cold basement and whatnot, and it's piped back upstairs. Not even that kind of cold. It's just sorry. Good luck. So you better be drinking that like a beer bong you're in. But hey, it is what it is. So, but anyways, I digress. Back to the fun here. Takeaways from the Rays series. Obviously, for me, it was the offense clicked and did everything it was needing to do. They ran into a steamroller that is named Shane McClanahan on the Sunday. So I'm not shocked that happened. I was shocked that the bullpen was able to hold it up after McClanahan finally left, but that was besides the point. But to that point, we have 2 of the best hitters in Major League Baseball right now in Matt Chapman and Bo Bichette, and then Vladdy, just a little bit behind right now, but crushing it as usual. So what are you thinking?
Well, Chapman's off the charts. I mean, we could do a whole show just on Chapman. It's ridiculous. And I'm really happy for Bo. I mean, Bo looks like he's engaged. He looks like he wants to be there, and he looks like he wants to challenge for American League or MVP, which is great.
Was
I love
that
all that.
Somebody's pick the click kind of thing for the whole season? Too bold for spring training prediction.
I think for me, my big takeaway was kind of twofold. The offense is part of it, but I think it's the overall team speed. It was taking bases. It was catching balls in the outfield that, as soon as they're off the bat, you're like, whoop, that might be getting down. There's Springer right there. Where'd he come from? You didn't see out there. And, and the fact that I do find myself as being a bit of an outfield guy. I do like the outfield. When I teach my kids, and all the kids that I teach in Little League, I tell them that the outfield's called a union, and you have to buy in and you have to be there together. And so they'll often even say, like, who's in the union tonight? And you look, and so but to see the way that the guys who are out there, be it Varsho, be it Kiermaier, be it whoever's playing out there, they're in sync, they're communicating. Like, even that ball that Bo probably could have caught that he was running back for. I mean, he's being called off that 10, 15 feet prior to that. He's got good warning to get himself out of the way. And not only does Varsho catch it, but Kiermaier is right behind him if something was to happen. And it's communication like that will win you championships. Baseball, like I often say that communication is such an important part of baseball, and it's very rarely mentioned. Very rarely do you hear that a coach has had a practice that was all communication. And I mean, we try and focus on it. It is so important to make sure that you're communicating, and so team speed, communication, and just timely hitting too. Like, geez,
tons of it.
Get two guys on and smash a base hit. Like, how good is that? And every single time they get a guy on third and a guy on first, they're running, and it's great. It's amazing. I love it.
To that point, I don't know how much you're paying attention to last night's game, but Brandon Belt, of all people, was actually one of the ones that started a hit and run with Whit Merrifield batting. And I'm pretty sure that's probably a first.
It is. I mean, it's like
Brandon Belt, I mean, is a guy that's he was a runner-up for a World Series MVP or one of the years. This is how it is. But I think it's crazy that you're even taking it to that level. And that was so perfectly timed, too. And he ended up coming around to score one play later than that. So he got the third, and then it was Santiago Espinal who came in with a clutch hit at that point. So scores.
He's finally turned it around, eh? It's nice to see he's hitting the ball, and he looks switched on now. He looked like he was kind of out in space. Yeah, bit of a woosah, I think. But yeah, I mean, it seems like anybody the Jays put in right now in the, doesn't matter if it's Witt or Espinal or Varsho or whoever's playing in the outfield, they all just seem to show up ready to play. They really seem to look like they're in it for each other and really are looking for team success. And I mean, it's so nice to see this early into the season. And God, I can't stop mentioning Don Mattingly. The guy's everywhere. The guy is everywhere. A guy gets a hit, he's talking to him. A guy makes a great play, he's talking to him. He pops up. You remember the Simpsons where Homer comes out of the hedge and goes back into the hedge? That's what Mattingly.
Same thing.
He just guys will go up on the rail like this, and then Mattingly comes up beside
oh, hi.
It's really working, and everything that you hear on the broadcast about, why these guys are having such big success, then one of the main things is because they've got a baseball icon in their ear,
along with a crazy good manager and John Schneider. This coaching staff is something nuts. But to that point, I do think that there is a little bit of the Mattingly effect going on in that locker room, because you just see them all, pitchers and hitters alike. They're all gravitating toward them. It's a great thing to have somebody else, especially when you can't get the manager's ear. It's just having that other role player, that leader to go to when you can't get to, like I said, get to Schneider when you need it, a quick tip or something like that. He's already helping a couple of guys or coming up with a game plan or whatever. Mattingly has been there, done that. And hopefully we get him his first damn World Series ring this year, because rightfully deserved.
Yeah, that's a tough one to stomach. There's a few guys who don't have rings in their particular sports, and
one playoff appearance, period, and it was his last year as a New York Yankee.
Wow, crazy!
And the following year, they win it. Right? The baseball gods were not nice to you. What did you do? So back to the defense, because I do think there is a lot to be said about this outfield, even with those moving parts and whatnot that you had mentioned, Jason. But do you have any idea where the Blue Jays rank as a team, which is a good chunk of this is because of the outfield? In all Major League Baseball, where do you think they rank in defensive runs saved?
Oh, it's got to be way up there. It's got to be second or third.
You are right with third. And it's a very close race at that point, and it's almost no contest after this. So the Diamondbacks, ironically, built their team on young talent right at this point and are looking like last year's Orioles to a certain point. And the next piece of that is they got 17 defensive runs saved for these young pitchers for them. That's nuts for this time of the year. The Brewers, also a team that's retooled, I'd say, very efficiently around what they had going on, because they got some nice talent all of a sudden, youngsters in that.
And
Bryce Terang and some of these other guys going on.
And Rowdy Therese is going off.
Yep, Rowdy has found the stroke. Yeah, all of a sudden. And I love Rowdy Therese. And to that point, old drinking buddy for about 5 minutes. Good clink, clink, clink.
Yeah. Love him. He's a special guy.
To that point, they have 16 defensive runs saved. The Blue Jays are in third with 14, and then it goes all the way down to 11 in single digits after that, with the Tigers being the next team. Which, to that point, if you were going to have a young team, which, like I said, two of those teams are probably playoff guys. One might make it in between the Diamondbacks, but the Tigers are definitely pretenders for this year at this point. But they're going to try keeping their youngsters on the mound, and having good defense helps with a lot of that.
Yeah. I mean, I went to a preseason game in Arizona and watched the Diamondbacks. How about that for cover? Sneeze cover.
I know, right?
Run for
puns
cover
are a wonderful thing.
So I saw
I'll drown it. It's okay.
And they are a good team. The Diamondbacks are going to be a force to be. They actually might even be better than the Orioles were, when we started talking about them. The Orioles are pretty good now, but that Diamondbacks.
The difference is pitching.
Yeah.
They actually have pitching.
For sure. Yeah, and confidence. They seem to be a confident bunch, and if you've got those two things, then you can go a long way. Even at the start of the season, if you can get yourself over sort of that 2.5 to 3 month hump, where you're still contending and still beating good teams, then sky's the limit. I mean, you can push that as hard as you want to.
Yeah, the confidence is there, and you can see it in the Corbin Carroll. What's Corbin? Corbin Carroll.
Corbin.
So anyway, whatever it is. But then you got Zach Gallen that's been crushing it on the mound, as he has been the last few years. There's a lot of things going on in the desert there with the Arizona Diamondbacks are looking pretty good. But to that point, this is actually a Blue Jays podcast. So other than the last 2 minutes,
it's all about baseball.
It's all about baseball. But to that point, the Blue Jays do have one of the best defenses currently on paper and proof with defensive runs saved, that things are going in the right direction. And in the midst of what has been a tumultuous turmoil of fun going on with our starting pitching, we're staying in ball games.
Yeah.
And that's our record reflects that. And that's mostly because the offense has been bludgeoning most of our opponents to a certain extent. But then they pull out a really nice win like they did the other night against Houston, 4-2. And I would say probably their most efficiently played game all year, because they had the 2 solo home runs, played a little small ball like we were mentioning there just to get some runs in, put an extra on the board. And then guess what? Bassett did his job and crushed it. And actually, correct me if I'm wrong, it's like 4 2/3 and no hit, no base runner baseball.
Yeah. But I mean, it's funny because Bassett, even when in the first game when he got punched up, you could see he just wasn't quite there. And then the second game, he was much better. And then that when he's throwing darts. And so the progression for a pitcher like Bassett to start to get comfortable. I mean, the Gossman one from the start of the series, that one that's not my favorite thing to see happen. He was missing in spots where you don't want to miss.
There's a lot going on with that.
I don't mind if you miss and walk guys, or if you're close to trying to get your spots. But if you're trying to hit a spot and it ends up being a grapefruit down Main Street, then it's not good. And it might, you got to hope, they've been screwing around with Manoah with mechanics and speed and all this other stuff. And I feel like he's getting there. Kikuchi has been the bright shining star. Again, we can knock on wood. We can do whatever, ring a gong, whatever you want to do.
At a minimum, he keeps doing what we're doing. We have one of the best fifth starters in baseball. He keeps even doing 100%. Something like he's doing right now. And I'm saying that he's got a 4.7 ERAs. He had that one outing where it went a little awry, but to that point, if he gets some of those innings up and keeps doing what he's doing, that is going to be around a 4 ERA, which is really good for a fifth starter.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've come a long way from the Josh Towers years and the things like that, but our Brian Tallets and
Brian Talent. Oof, that's not a good one.
There you
I'm
go.
not happy you remembered that one.
I'm throwing out there the names that have been fifth starter spots from many of the multitude of years that we've had when we were not good. Not every year was, and just remember this: Daniel Norris was the opening day starter not the opening day starter, the number 5 starter when we opened the 2015 season.
Yeah.
So, and then Marco Estrada comes out of nowhere and steals that damn job and runs away with it for 3 seasons. So, it is what it is. It's what that fifth starter usually is. And I don't know if you've been watching Twitter at all tonight or not, but Ricky Tiedeman's having himself another crazy good night in the minor leagues. So,
yeah, it seems to be
competition here.
He's the talk of the town right now, not just Blue Jays. I was listening to a Blue Jays channel on Sirius, and he's getting national recognition now in the U.S. They're talking about how good he is, and you know, how the Jays are kind of sandbagging him a bit and all the rest of that. And so that's positive to hear, you know, I believe it was ESPN 1 or 2, their baseball show talking about that. And yeah, I mean, it's, you know, I got to see a lot of the talent the other day for the Canadians, and they've got a kid who looks like he's 12 who throws the ball 102 miles an hour. I can't remember his name. I'll have to look it up, but it's refreshing to see the amount of talent that they do have at every level, and they all seem to be having fun. Win, lose, or draw, they're having fun. And I mean, I think at the root of it, that's what this thing's supposed to be all about. If you end up being, you know, talented enough to make a game your livelihood and your life, at least have fun doing it, right?
Yeah, clearly somebody's having some way too much fun. I don't know if you've seen the kid from Sandlot that plays Ham, the Great Dino, is in a new commercial for I think it's some handheld mobile game for baseball, and it's got Ken Griffey Jr. walks into the group and he keeps going, no hitter. He can't hit.
Oh, that's the Trout one. It's the Mike Trout comes up and he says no hitter, and Trout hits it.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Ken Griffey catches it. Yeah.
Yep.
That's a good one.
So, and that's the fun of what baseball's supposed to be. And to that point, these guys you can clearly tell that they're having fun at these days. Did you happen to see who was visiting Mr. John Schneider at the ballpark and was having some fun last night?
No.
Former Silver Slug Award winner for the Toronto Blue Jays, second baseman. Take a guess.
Roberto Alomar?
I don't know if they were handing out Silver Slugger awards when Roberto Alomar was still playing.
No, maybe not.
At least not when he was a Blue Jay. I want to say it was mid-90s when post-strike that started being an award. I'd have to look that one up. I just don't remember anybody ever really talking about it. So maybe it was one of those things that the guys just put up on their mantle.
Yeah, maybe. Who was it?
Aaron Hill.
Really?
Minor league teammates of John Schneider.
Interesting. I always liked him.
Aaron Hill was always my man crush Monday in the Angry Bird days. Guy hit 30 home runs the one year, for Christ's sake. So always a fun pleasure to have. But you got guys like him coming around and just saying hi and goofing around. Even, let's say Whit Merrifield catches his ear for a few minutes. You think they weren't talking hitting?
Yeah.
I mean, Whit's been hitting the ball damn well lately, just saying.
He kind of reminds me a bit body style wise of Varsho too. Like, or if Varsho if he got hit on the head a little bit and shrunk a bit. But I will say this, like, I take a lot of my cues from my kids because, you know, being 11 now, they're willing to watch the majority of a game on TV with me, which is great. Yeah. If we go, they'll watch the game. It's, you know, TV is tough to get a kid to sit and watch a whole game. And they've become really big fans of Varsho because they're wondering when a football is going to pop out of somewhere and he's going to come around through like a free safety and blow up the shortstop.
He might run through a wall at some point.
Dude,
just saying, we've been close. I feel like on a few plays.
I was watching him, like he's running around in the outfield doing his warm up before 2 games ago, and you're like, good Lord, man, like you are just a ham shank running around out there, like just
he's probably one of the fastest guys on the team too.
Easily.
To the point he's crazy athletic,
unbelievably athletic. But I think that goes back to what we talked about. Like the Rays are such a good team because they're athletes. They're all athletes. I mean, it's hard to teach a guy how to hit a 90+ mile an hour fastball. But if you're an athletic person, that's the kind of thing that can come. If you've got hand-eye, if you've got all these other things, and you're starting to see that around the whole league right now. Ryan Mountcastle, unbelievably athletic dude. There's so many of them, and it's funny now to see some of the guys who aren't quite as athletic. Like Manny Machado is having a really rough year this year. He's not the most athletic dude, where a guy like Cody Bellinger
shouldn't have ever gotten all that money.
But a guy like Cody Bellinger who has a down year.
Around.
Yeah, Bellinger has a down year, but he's an athlete. He's going to come back. And I hated that the Dodgers had to get rid of him for him to get the slap in the face. But it's nice to see him playing at Wrigley and crushing the ball. And I mean, this is his kind of baseball. He's long, he's lean, he hits the ball into the gap, and he can get you bases. And when you look at the Jays, I mean, that's Kevin Kiermaier, with a little bit of seasoning on him. But again, we've got guys now that like Springer's realized that there's a lot of green out in the outfield, and he can hit the ball out there, and he's just as good to run. And we talked about this before we started. Vladdy's getting frustrated with the fact that he's not squaring up balls. I mean, he's got one of the best averages in the league right now. He's unbelievably good, and he's hitting singles and doubles. They'll come. Like if he just gets
what was this? Head. I think during the show last night they said over the last week he was batting .333 with like 13 singles or something like that. And then they were talking literally of how he was frustrated they wasn't getting enough lift and pop and whatnot in those hits. And literally, like the last word comes out of his mouth and from Buck, and it just goes crack, and it goes right over the right field wall on a screamer. Would be the nice way of putting it. I felt sorry for that baseball because that just reminded me of the reason why Frank Thomas was nicknamed the Big Hurt. And I don't know if you've heard that story.
I don't know why he's called the Big Hurt. I assume it's awesome, but
it's a Hawk Harrelson.
Oh,
he
really?
said he put a murdering on that ball or something like that, and then he's like, I felt sorry for that poor baseball. That was a big hurt, things like that, and then it just stuck in.
Yeah,
perfect.
It's and I hope that Vladdy, I hope that Vladdy can have the foresight to be able to see that. That Bo's hitting home runs right now, and that other guys on the team can pick up that mantle and can hit the ball out of the yard. And if he does his job and hits singles and doubles, those guys are fast enough that every single time they come around, they're getting a run out of it, at least one. And that it's crucial, to understand that when you're going through what you perceive as a slump, just because you're not hitting home runs, sometimes you have to, see the forest for the trees and just be like, you know what, maybe if I hit 5 doubles in the next 3 games, that'll make up for the lack of home runs, or, just look at your RBIs or something else, dude, because you're mashing and we need you to keep mashing.
Yes. But it'll happen. It's going to happen. And I'm never going to be ever worried about the work ethic between Bo, Vlad, and even to that point, Kevin Biggio. I still am wondering if he's still a real opportunity away from doing it. But right now with Whit Merrifield doing what he's doing, he's not losing playing time. So he's going to probably be playing second base because you have your outfield full up. It's just how it's going to be for the time being. We'll see. I really wouldn't be shocked if one of those 3 guys gets traded before the end of the season here.
Oh, yeah,
between Espinal, Biggio, and Whit Merrifield. So
I think
we'll see.
I don't think it's going to be Merrifield. I feel like it's Espinal or Biggio, and it's now more even siding to the Espinal things on my side of things. I feel like they're trying to trot him out there as much as they can. I think they've probably said to Biggio, you're going to get your opportunities. Just give us a bit here. We need to try and move an asset. And they probably didn't say that, but you know what I mean?
But they're thinking that. But to that point, the reason that I agree with you that Espinal is probably more tangible, tradable candidate.
Right.
Because the other fun part about this whole thing is the Blue Jays like the flexibility they have with Biggio because he can play first base and left field and right field. There's a little bit more position depth with Biggio as far as his how many gloves he carries around his bat bag. But the other fun part about this, I think they have the equivalent of Santiago Espinal playing in Buffalo right now in Otto Lopez.
Yes, they do. Otto Lopez is very similar in every way.
And to that point, I would make the argument that he really should have a chance to be at the major league level, especially with what he did at the World Baseball Classic. He has slumped since a really hot first 3 games in Buffalo, but I have a strange feeling he'll be fine. And like I said, he doesn't need to be anything other than Santiago Espinal if he comes up to be that last infielder. Right. And to that point, and the Blue Jays have a guy back on the bench right now for that. And thank God to me that the Jordan Luplow experiment is over with for the time being. I was not terribly excited about that because I felt that Nathan Lucas was the better player in that situation and a left-handed bat. So I felt that fit the team more.
I agree with you.
So, and not to mention, maybe I just like Nathan Lucas a little too much, but that's besides the point. He's a good guy. He hits the ball everywhere. I really think that if you were going to talk about a guy that comes in and pinch hits or plays a random day like that, you want somebody that plays like that grinds outs and stuff like he does, plays great defense, hits the ball all fields, will find a way to contribute. I think that's what you need in that fourth outfielder bench guy. So,
for sure.
And to that point, I think someday he might actually play full-time somewhere and do a very similar of a ex-Blue Jay Lane Thomas with the Washington Nationals right now, who's really come out of his shell a little bit. But anyway, let's talk as we get toward the end of the show here, Astro series specific, because we are going into the third game this evening and the rubber match, because we did get blown out and then we figured it out. So, what have you seen in these first 2 games outside of what we were talking about with some of the pitching woes and whatnot? Right now, we are still seeing the ridiculous thing that is Matt Chapman all of a sudden, and it's still proving perfect.
I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I think that there's a couple of big things for tonight. The Jays are going up against a starter who doesn't have a win in Garcia. He has a monster ERA. Not that Berrios, who has almost the same ERA, isn't.
But I would say from what I've seen from Garcia, he's been struggling with the whole new pitch clock thing because he had that weird, funky delivery last season that is now outlawed. And you could clearly tell he's not comfortable on the mound.
He was the rockabye guy. He was
correct.
He did the
back and forth. So, I don't
know if you saw him at World Baseball. His motion was really, really abrupt. And it didn't look controlled, and it was not good. So
it looks uncomfortable.
Yeah, if you throw, he doesn't miss the strike zone. That's his problem. He, just like I said earlier, if you're gonna miss, don't miss. Inside on Vladdy, don't miss up on Chapman. And that's
he might just do what I just saw Ralvis Martinez do for the New Hampshire Fisher Cats to give Ricky Tiedemann some support. Just saying,
there you
go.
We need a homer ding or like a homer bell or something when we're.
I think it's something.
When we're live, like an air horn or something. Anyways, I mean, I think
get a foghorn just like in the ballpark.
The big thing for the game tonight is get up early, give Berrios some support, let him pitch from. He always pitches better from a position of strength. So if they can get a few runs in the first few innings, let him cruise a little bit. Hopefully he can get deep. The bullpen really hasn't had to do a ton of work on this trip, which is good. And they were decent yesterday. I think that's a big thing. And then keep the bats going. I mean, after today, they're what? So you've got 2 days off to get to New York.
Tomorrow off.
Tomorrow
they play Friday
off. Yeah, you're right. And then 3 straight in New York. That'll be quite a 3-game series actually. And then right into the next day, right into the White Sox. So these are the ones where you've really got to get like Gausman. That was a ballsy effort to get through those innings that he did and not have to go to a reliever. again, it's an important win tonight. They got to get that. They've got to get these ones, especially when they're going up against a pitcher who's struggling. They got to make hay when the sun shines, as they say.
And they're actually right now they're playing a struggling Astros team. We should take advantage of that because they have a lot of guys hurt right now.
Yeah.
And honestly, I was surprised after watching last night's game that they didn't add one more to that list with who was it that was hobbling? Oh, it was Alvarez was hobbling to go into first base after. And then they've also had one of the guys foul a ball right off his knee. I think it was Kyle Tucker.
Yeah.
So they're banged up is what I'm saying. They're still the World Series champs. There's definitely no slouch there. And Garcia was a huge, huge part of that success last year. But maybe that's because he was doing a little too much rocking, like you said, and just put hitters to sleep.
Yeah, I don't know. It's such a hokey windup and a hokey delivery. It's like if you go to like really high level softball games, they've got these weird pitchers doing like funky dances before they throw their underarm pitch. It's the same.
It's not the Savannah Bananas. This is freaking Major League Baseball.
But otherwise, I mean, they've got to just keep. They've got to keep the pedal down. They've got to try and get. I would say they need a solid. 1 and then 2 in each, like I said, 2 in each of the series coming up. And then, you can relax a little bit. And when they do lose one to Pittsburgh or somewhere coming up, and we're like, "No, what are you doing?" We can look back and say, "Oh yeah, remember when they beat
we did this right."
Yeah,
and that would be fun to say, especially after this weekend in the Bronx, because in the midst of this, so where we are in the rotation, it's still to be determined for the weekend who's pitching. But if you follow the rotation, which there shouldn't be any reason we should be playing around with the rotation this early in the season, Friday evening would be, you say, Kikuchi's night, unless they do something weird where Manoah wants to just not have that extra day because of the day off or something stupid, which, like I said, this early in the season, they don't usually play around with that nonsense, especially with what's going on with Manoah right now. I'd take the extra day in Bronx and come out Saturday, crush it.
You do realize what the potential starters are for the 22nd, right?
Oh, yeah. Don't go past the Audi sign.
Yeah. If I was Manoah, I might get an Audi sign necklace made before the game.
This is where he comes in with like the rumor before Major League Baseball season and spring training started this year was that they were going to start on the opposite side from the New Era hat. They were going to start licensing out that space for things. It would be too funny if he walked out that day with Audi right there. So, but to that point, it's going to be an interesting thing because that is got to be the first time they went head to head because they weren't both number one aces last year in the rotations. Just Cole was.
And Cole's an animal this year. 4-0 with a .95 ERA. Like, come on.
Yeah, I really hope he runs into the Blue Jays full force of the offense on Friday night and just gets trounced.
Oh, you got to hope.
It'll make me feel a lot better.
Yeah, I know.
And to the point, finishing up tonight strong, getting on the plane and going to the Bronx is going to feel a ton better with a win this evening.
You got to
carry that momentum.
100%.
So that's your Saturday, and then you have Gossman on Sunday, and I heard a rumor that Luis Severino might be back on Sunday.
So as of this, I'm looking at my cheat sheet, and as
that was a rumor, and I'm hoping my fancy baseball notes are right because I could use them in my pitching rotation. I just don't want to see them beat the Blue Jays, but we can beat up on their bullpen, and before King and Holmes come out, we'll be all set.
Yeah.
That Holmes guy is on another level this year, man.
Yeah.
I can see why they didn't have any interest in retaining Andrellis Chapman.
Yeah.
And he's playing with the Kansas City Royals now. And looking a lot better than normal, but
yeah,
there you go.
I know.
That's baseball for you.
You got it.
So, but anyway, why don't we look ahead? Get your crystal ball out, whatever you want to call it. Tonight, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think we take there it is? Do we take the series here this evening with a Barrios start?
I do with a Barrios start. I'm thinking it's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of a 5-2 win for the Jays. Couple of home runs, some strong defense is going to get them through, and that's what the old goggles are saying.
There you go. That's what you're reading?
Yeah.
I haven't looked at the starting lineup this evening to see who's DHing and whatnot, but to that point, I tend to agree with you because I really just don't see how they don't beat up on Garcia already, who's on the ropes. It's going to be hard for him to do that big of a U-turn, I think, and you've been seeing him struggle with it all spring, and to this point, it's not getting much better, would be my thoughts.
And again, let's hope that they take advantage of that, and then they really smash. So here, I'll give you the lineup as quickly as I got it. Springer, Bichette, Guerrero, Varsho, Chapman, Kirk, Merrifield, Kiermaier, and then Nathan Lukes.
Oh, he's gonna start. Good.
He's gonna start, ladies and gentlemen.
I actually like that lineup because that's proper, I think. And at that point, I wouldn't be shocked that Matt Chapman continues this streak that he's on this evening to the point of more home runs. This might be a night he stands out. That would be my crystal ball level for this evening. So why don't we look
DH tonight?
Yeah, and that honestly, he probably needed a night off. The outfield over the last few days has all gotten a day off, and I think it was just his turn at this point. So, because even actually, I take that back. I don't think Varsho got any days off this series. They moved him to center last night for Merrifield to play left. So, anyway, further ahead, how are you predicting the Yankees series?
Here's my bold prediction. They're going to win the first one. They're going to lose the second one. They're going to win the third one.
So take the series and play Cito ball continued for this season because that seems to be the mantra so far.
Yep. Kikuchi and Gausman are going to get the wins. Oh, well, maybe not the wins, but they're both going to pitch well. I feel bad for Manoah going up against the buzzsaw, but I do feel like he's going to compete. I feel like they're going to be staring each other down the whole game, no matter what it is. And I feel like it'll be good. Some fireworks are fun. And I like the fact that the Yankees are bold enough to challenge Manoah with Cole. I think that's a lot of fun. Kudos to them for doing that. He's on a heater. I mean, the only other way it could go is if Manoah beats him, and then it's just like, oof,
If Manoah is going to show up amped up in the right direction for anything, I think his competitive juices are going more against a guy like him. So we'll see where it goes. But I do think that's going to be the highlight game of the series. I really do think that. And that's not just because of that. I really do think that it's one of two things. It's going to be a nail biter all the way through it, or it's going to be one of those games where they just keep pounding each other back and forth. So let's say the Yankees get to Manoah early again, like that's happened. The Blue Jays are going to come out trying to back him up and pick him back up, and they're going to attack Cole. And we have seen that, and I believe they actually had this stat on during the broadcast the other day. The Blue Jays are the best fastball hitting team in Major League Baseball to this day. So I know it's early in the season, but there's a reason that it's the number one in all pitchers' arsenals. You throw heat, you get outs. Yeah. So all the rest of it's just a mess with timing.
They seem to be able to read the 2 and the 4 right now quite well, and they're barreling those balls up. Bo especially. I don't know if you notice he's got like a little scraped off part on his bat, and I don't know why it has it, but holy, is he ever using it to his advantage?
Yep. So I did not know that. Well, he was the Blue Jays AAA MVP last year, but it says Nathan Lucas on the Blue Jays Twitter is getting his official first major league start tonight. Man, it drafted in 2015, so that's pretty cool that it's been that many years and he finally gets a real start in Major League Baseball. I hope he comes out and does that. But back to the regular part here we were talking about. What I'm really looking forward to this weekend is seeing Gausman pitch. I want to see how he reacts to coming off of that rough start because you could tell something wasn't right. And we were talking about a minute ago how Garcia had to change his motion a little bit. Gausman was the other end of the spectrum that he wasn't doing the rocking crazy crap, but it was enough that it was ruled out because of the way the rules changed, mostly because of people like Garcia. He gets lumped. His setup got lumped into that whole equation just enough that he had to do some minor tweaking. And up until the game the other day, that was not a problem at all. But you could tell, like you said, just not quite as fine. And the Astros dove all over it.
He seemed to be doing a funny kick as well. Like he has that normal, natural little kick, and he seemed to almost be putting too much into it, so he was kind of off tilt when he was coming, to his throw. But I probably, as you noticed, as the game got on, the kick got less and the ball was much more under control. I mean, it's amazing, when you ask a like if you were to go ask, Tiger Woods or Rory to change his putting style just for one event, I mean, they'd be all over the place. And it's hard. Like, I think we assume sometimes with stuff like this for you to go in and say, hey, we just need you to speed your motion up a little bit. Yeah. That can't be that hard. Well, it is. It's really hard.
It's actually very hard.
Yeah.
Why does this sound like Ron Washington in Moneyball for a second? First base isn't that hard.
Yeah, love that.
It's actually extremely hard.
One of my favorites.
And to that point, I always forget that, I think of that part every time I think about somebody saying it ain't that hard. And then I also forget that technically Mark Shapiro was the villain in that movie to a certain extent, as he was the Cleveland Indians' manager that would notoriously not trade him that reliever. So that was too funny. But to that point, I do think that this will be just like every New York series for a certain Blue Jays first baseman turns into Nashville. I have a strange feeling at the end of the weekend here, we're going to be talking about Vladdy Mania all over again and how those singles are no longer singles, Chase.
I do agree with you. I think that he is half a miss away from hitting about 15 into places that don't exist in stadiums. He is,
and then a guy is notoriously good in the Bronx. Yeah.
So I mean, it's I feel like he's very, very, very close, and it's just a whisper away. And when he does start hitting them, good Lord, I mean, we know they're gonna fly. We've seen him before. It's one of my favorite stories is watching him just smash baseballs. But yeah.
So, but that's how Blue Jays fans get to do it. So I'm going to use that as segue points to talk about the end of our show, because we're in the regular season now, and that's to go over this cheat sheet that some certain person already has 2 wins in, which is starting to irk me. See, he's not here to make fun of. So we're going to carry over his for now the 3rd week in a row, because and it oddly won him a week, but we're not going to. I don't think it wins them this week. No. So last week I had Chapman. You had Bo Bichette. He had KK, as in Kevin Kiermaier. And we're still carrying over the guest spot because the last 2 weeks in a row, our guests have been sick. So must be all those, wonderful spring allergies going into summer that are messing with everybody, because this went from summer to winter here in the course of 2 days in New York.
And we still haven't seen any summer. We're just living in winter. It's been brutal here.
Well, it's because you're in the Vancouver Canadians ballpark or Canucks area there. And that's what you get. I blame your hockey team.
I always do too.
So we're gonna go out and change the order up here because we're carrying over Kevin Kiermaier for. Actually, before I go that far, I think it comes down to you and I last week. His Varsho was pretty good, but not anything stellar. Kevin Kiermaier was a key role player, but like I said, not anything stand out compared to what Bo and Chapman did. I think it's like a 50-50 between you and I right now.
It's off. It's a tiesy.
Yeah, I might just put that up on Twitter and see who votes
I'm cool with that.
And we'll call it and see what happens. That was our tiebreaker last year as the fans of the show. Cool, I guess we'll just keep that up. So I'm going to let you go first, though, because I'm hosting and you're the guest, I guess.
Sort of, I guess. Yeah. Okay.
So go for it.
Oh, geez.
Who was your pick to click, sir? Is what we're for the fans that have not been following the show. I'm doing this. I'm giving you time to think.
Have I gone Varsho before?
You have not. You've went Springer, Merrifield, Bo. Going Varsho. Varsho. Oh wait, hold on. We can't go Varsho because he's still the carryover for the guest spot.
Kiermaier.
Also a carryover for Kevin or for Ken.
You know what?
There's no more carryovers. You got to pick anybody but those two.
I'm going Kirk.
There it is. The maple beef. One of my favorite picks.
Yeah.
He won me some key clutch ones last year that I needed to win. So
I put the taco up today just for him. That's Oppo
Taco. So, I did say Vladdy, but I've already picked him once this year. I want to pick somebody else. I have not picked George Springer yet this season, and I think I'm going to go with George Springer. And to that point, I like him. There's still that old rivalry that he has with the New York Yankees, so I'm going to just run off of that and see what happens. So, Blue Jays fans, for the ones that are just joining the show or figuring out what we're doing here, that is our pick to click session every week, and that's just for bragging rights, so we have a reason to yell at each other at the end of each show here every week.
Yep.
So Jason, anything you would like to add this evening?
Not a thing, buddy. I got a huge game tonight, Giants versus White Sox at the beautiful Viewland Park. Giants are on a two-game heater coming into it.
There it is.
Yeah, all excited.
I want one more quick discussion here to wrap the show, and I have to personally gush on the roadmap that has been Chris Bassett's move up in the right direction. I was completely blown away by that performance last night, and just couldn't have been better timed after Manoah had the issue, then Gausman had the issue. You were talking about needing a stopper when we weren't at the ace position of our rotation, and he acted like a ace last night.
For sure.
And did exactly what this club needed, to the point where we can switch this momentum around and go into the Bronx, hopefully.
Yeah, he looked super confident. I think that his air of confidence kind of, sprinkled all around the team yesterday. I thought it was very good. Again, back to the sort of the Mattingly factor. I feel like he, where a pitcher is not talking, I saw him talking to some guys in the dugout, and I feel like sort of gone are the days. Like, I know they leave Manoah alone pretty much, but Gausman talks, Bassett talks, and I feel like, even if you're getting creamed, you've always got your teammates to rely on, and I think that's a big thing. And I think Bassett, sort of being a voice in there, or appearing to be one at least, I think that was a positive for the whole team.
So I don't know if it was before or after the game, but it was Vladdy on the Twitter account. Basically, somebody clearly had a camera on Vladdy, and he happens to be sitting next to Chris Bassett. And I thought this was hysterical. As Vladdy's being Vladdy, hey, what's up, with a giant smile and trying to get Bassett in on the action or whatever, egging him on a little bit. Bassett just very casually leans over, grabs his head like this on the top, and you can see pretends to kiss him, and then goes back to looking at what he was looking at. So exactly, all good and fun in baseball, and like we said, it's a game. You should have some fun with it.
Some fun.
So anyways, Blue Jays fans, this has been another lovely evening of Jay Bird watching. I want to give a couple of shout outs to our friends Blue Jays Dad this evening. If you're on Blue Jays Twitter, make sure you jump out and watch. On Friday evening, he's hosting a Twitter Spaces event. I forget the time, but check his podcast or his Twitter handle, Blue Jays Dad, real hard to find. Friend of the show, and I'm probably going to jump in Friday evening during the game and chit chat Blue Jays baseball during the Yankee game. Jason might also jump in and have some fun here. Join the conversation with us. It's some things that we're going to try doing here a little bit more too, along with trying to do some better recaps that I said we were going to start doing, and I was horrible about doing this weekend.
Well, it was mostly my fault because the dumb Instagram password won't work. So.
Oh, well, then we are going to figure that out. So I didn't know what was up. So anyways, Blue Jays fans, until next Wednesday evening, we'll probably be back at 7 o'clock Eastern, unless Jay's got more fun baseball games here to talk about. We have no more guests that like to keep canceling on us, and it just becomes the Craig and Jay show. So we're just going to have some fun like we do every Wednesday evening at 7 o'clock Eastern time. And we're going to have some fun talking Blue Jays baseball on what is the Blue Jays Barroom Chat. That is Jaybird watching here as the official podcast of JJDrill.com, part of Fansided. And Jason, I believe it might be that time.
It is.
Woo! Let's go, Blue Jays.
Thank you for listening to the Jaybird Watching Podcast. Please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch at BirdwatchingGC, and our YouTube channel. If you want to support the show and get extra content, please consider joining to our Patreon at patreon.com/birdwatchinggc. Go Jays, go.